Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. On the show today is someone who saw a problem, something many of us would never think about, organizing an entire nonprofit around. Because there's some things you just do and you're like, can this be a nonprofit? Will this be sustainable? Well, the answer is yes. And if you're thinking of something no one else is doing, then you want to tune in to this show today. Ashir, founder of Measured Tones. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ashir, thank you for being on the show today. I'm so glad to see you again. I saw you a few months ago in Memphis and before that in Colombia. Thanks for coming on.
Alhamdulillah, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thanks for having me. Alhamdulillah.
Ashir, I have met people who founded relief organizations. I have met people who founded masjids. I've met people who founded Islamic schools. I even met people who found Hifz programs. But as I met you and I heard you tell me your story and the story of Measured Tones, I wanted to make sure that to anyone out there who's thinking about something different, there is a pathway to success. But first, Ashir, how did you make that shift? Everybody else was getting jobs, becoming doctors, engineers, and working, starting a business. And you, mashallah, started a nonprofit. How did you make that pivot? What happened? What inspired you? What was going on in your mind?
Yeah, so Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, salatu salam ala Rasulillah. So I was a little afraid at first before starting a nonprofit myself, like the typical, individual. But for me, it was a good friend of mine who you might know. I don't know if you know Saad Omar.
Yeah.
He's the one that inspired me to take the leap. But I had a couple of people that kept telling me Ashir, you got something with this Measured Tones thing, man. You gotta get it off the ground, man. You gotta do something about it. So this one brother, the first one to kind of push me was this brother named Jelani Shabazz. Mashallah, brother grew up in Compton, LA, inner city, Muslim. Ended up at Harvard, mashallah, graduated from Harvard, and now he's like a big time executive in I don't know, what is it, Comcast or something like this or whatever, right? And so he's doing that now, mashallah. And he was telling me, man, you got to get it going. He actually made me my first Google Suite account when my vanity email address, the one that I use right now, ashir@measuredtones.com, he made that.
Wow.
And yeah, he's totally set it up without my permission. He was just it was to motivate, come on, man, you got to do it, because it ain't real until you got your domain and you got your logo and you got your, and so he wanted to yes. he wanted to make it real for me. So he made the domain, he made the email, all of that. So that was great. And then the next push that I needed was I got a call one day. I was just sitting chilling on a weekend one day. And I was nearing the end of the school year. I was teaching at this Islamic school here in Memphis. And Saad just calls me out of the blue. Mind you, very hard guy to get in contact with. I got to call him 15 times to get him once, right? And he just calls me out of the blue and he says, Ashir, you got to get Measured Tones going. And he says, what do you need? How much do you need to be able to essentially just make the jump and just leave everything, So I gave him the numbers. I was like, well, this is what I'm working with. I could work with at least this much to start off with and up, And so he was like, all right, cool. So that's a good little starting point. But, ideally, what would you want? After things are running. And so then I was like, okay, maybe this, and then, medical benefits and some, some benefits packages and a little something to maybe invest, or something like that. He was like, all right, bet. So then he was like, all right, I will commit through my organization at least something like $5,000, right, to just kind of give you a head start or something like that. And then we can talk about everything else, blah blah. And that phone call right there, it just sealed the deal. Up until that point, I kept thinking about it. I was afraid to actually make an actual leap to make it a thing, And then when he said that, at the end of that phone call, I said, all right, khalas, I'm not going to sign the contract to go back to the school. We're going to do this. I had no idea really how I was going to do it. But he inspired me to just basically trust in Allah, And it did help that, even though $5,000 is not it's not a ton of money, but it was something, it was
Yeah.
like, he believes enough in me that he's going to commit this amount. And he's a person that starts nonprofits and does well with them, so if he sees something, that must be something. And so I went ahead, I made the leap that summer, mind you, this was in a matter of couple months. I put together a program for Surah Yasin for people I called it the Surah Yasin Summer Intensive, in which people memorize the whole entire Surah Yasin, studied the tajweed of it, and the tafsir. And I got
Wow.
teachers. I hired about 4 different teachers, or five, two of whom were former students of mine that I gave ijazah to. Young ladies, they were only like maybe 16 or 17 at the time. I hired them to teach, and I got a few other ones, and then it was myself. We ended up getting I was targeting like 40 students. We got 40 students within a matter of like a week, like that signed up for the program. Mashallah. And then I wanted to raise money because Measured Tones was always about accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Creating opportunities for underserved Muslims, and not pricing people out, right? And so I wanted to be able to do that while still being able to pay my teachers, a good wage, a good amount to teach. And so I ended up raising a little over $10,000 for scholarships. And then with the people that paid together, it was probably like over $20,000 generated in a matter of just like months, basically. So I was able to pay my teachers for just 2 months of of a few hours, a couple hours a day. They had to teach for like maybe, I don't know, 5 days a week, so like for the whole week. It was like a couple hours. I was able to give them a couple $1,000s a piece, and then pay my tafsir teacher as well to teach the tafsir, and so on and so on and so forth. And that was the thing that essentially was the seed money
Yeah.
for the beginning of Measured Tones.
When before Saad called you, you were already doing Measured Tones as sort of volunteer extra time outside of your regular job. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
I often
Mhm.
find, passionate community service leaders like yourself who they have a full-time gig but it's not really what they're entirely, it's not the dream. And then
Yeah.
they're doing the dream evening weekends. And then it isn't until, a Saad, for example, comes along
Yeah.
and gets you going. So then what
Yeah.
happens next? How do you now, because you're doing it full time now, right? Measured Tones is full time.
Yeah, that's full time. But I ended up at one point. I actually ended up going back to the teaching thing as well, part time, because we did experience a little bit of a dip. Because what made it a little easier at the time, because we were doing online classes, it was kind of like in COVID, right? And COVID made everything online kind of like explode. And so after COVID, like died down or whatever, that whole thing died down. I had to kind of pivot and become a lot more creative to kind of keep that momentum. But it took a little while, and I took a little bit of a dip, and so it kind of forced me to kind of go back into the teaching. I really wasn't trying to. I was going to try to do something else, like I was trying to go to tech route and all that kind of stuff. But but it was kind of like lowest hanging fruit as something that I'm good at. And I was just like, let me just go ahead and do this for right now, while I sort of build things back up to where it can once again become my only like sort of source of income as it was when I started.
Yeah. And so, and just so everybody knows, tell us about Measured Tones. What is Measured Tones?
So Metrotown's Institute of Qur'an is an institute that primarily focuses on teaching the tajweed of the Qur'an, the proper
Mashallah.
recitation of the Qur'an. And the reason why I did that is because you don't find many institutes that's all they do. Like you said,
Right.
it's people see like HIFS institutes, maybe some stuff that teach like Islamic studies in general, which include like tafsir, they'll include tajweed. But I'm focusing solely on tajweed. And
Right.
part of that was inspired by, my newfound knowledge when I went overseas to study that reciting the Quran with tajweed is actually, an obligation upon Muslims to at least try. Not that if you can't achieve it despite your efforts, you're sinful. Not like that, but like people just kind of being negligent and not doing it
Right.
is considered, not a good thing. And so I basically wanted to, and then I also know, a lot of people, mashallah, they really want to recite the Quran properly, right? And we got, a number of institutions that offer the classes and stuff, but I didn't see a lot of, you know, uh, what do you call it? Like what we're doing, kind of like scholarship opportunities
Yeah.
in this space. And I grew up, low income, my whole life, seeing programs, come up and just being priced out. It was a lot of stuff I wanted to do growing up. I hear, my friends would go to minicamp every single year. Never went to a minicamp a day in my life. Always wanted to go to minicamp. The ICNAs and ISNAs, never was really able to attend them until I was like an adult, basically, and able to pay for myself to go to the conventions and stuff like that. It was just, I just didn't really, and then you have the traveling things, I'm not going to name institutes. I'm not trying to say I'm bashing them, but you have these traveling institutes that will go to communities and they would, they charge like a premium to attend their classes and stuff. It's fine. It's like, that's their niche, whatever, their demographic. But it was all, people were just never able, people like myself growing up were never able to access those. And so I didn't want to be that institute. I wanted to be the institute that whether you have a lot of money, you have little money, you could attend our classes, and they're taking classes together. And that's essentially
Yeah.
what's happening right now. We got people that, mashallah, when we do fundraisers, even though a lot of our stuff are accessible, but when we do fundraisers, a lot of our students end up donating. Mashallah.
Yeah.
One young lady joined the Surah Yasin intensive on a scholarship. And then the next time we launched a program and I did a fundraiser for scholarships, she donated $1,000, mashallah.
SubhanAllah.
She
Wow.
donated $1,000. She was on scholarship when she came in. And then
Wow.
I don't know what happened. She came upon some money, or I don't know what the heck. But she donated $1,000. And we have people, mashallah, that believe in the vision so much. As one guy was, for an entire year, he was a couple years, he was always donating $1,000. Every time we do a fundraiser, I can count on him at least give $1,000. And they really, believe in this mission of accessibility. So part of what we're trying to do is ease the burden of this obligation of this fard ain of reciting the Quran. We want to help people be able to fulfill that obligation with ease. So we're
With
actually
these.
transitioning to totally free Tajweed classes,
MashaAllah.
and just depending on people essentially, donating to be able to pay our teachers, and we're going to use other things to generate income.
Now, how many years has it been since that moment you talked to Saad to where you are today? Just so I have a perspective of time. 5 years, 3
about
years,
about 5 years. Yeah.
Now, and so from that moment where you started, and then you kind of had to go back, and now you're full time again, mashallah, and even to a point where you're ready to give tajweed classes for free, took 5
Hmm.
years. What advice
Yeah.
do you have to somebody out there right now who's thinking of starting a nonprofit, and it's for sort of, I would say, a non-traditional social good organization, like, who it really takes someone finding a niche, seeing a fard kifaya to say, hey, I'm going to solve this tajweed problem. I'm going to make sure everyone understands the importance of tajweed and pursues it, even if they never get there. In the
Hmm.
process is what Allah wants to see, right? And
Yeah.
somebody else out there right now is working on something also very disruptive, very different than your traditional food basket, your backpack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What advice do you
Yeah.
have for them if they're thinking about that? Should they do it? Are they crazy, or should they give up? Should they do something else? What do you think?
No, I wouldn't say give up. I would say honestly, I would advise them to do what I did. When you have a something that's niche that nobody's ever done, you don't have any data to go based off on, right?
Yeah.
You kind
You
of just
don't.
got to do it.
You got to do it.
You
Okay.
just got
Tell
to
me
do
more
it.
about
So
that.
just knock it out. Because for me, I was afraid that, I was like, I don't know if anyone would actually bite on this, like would go for this type of thing. That's kind of what was keeping me, on edge, like kind of on the edge of my seat. Like, do I do it? Do I not do it? Playing double dutch, with the idea. And something particular that I just had to test out was my Fatihah Tour. That thing,
Mm.
I was like, I was like, I don't know if anybody, because it's Fatihah. Everybody thinks they know Fatihah,
Right.
but I know that a lot of, just based on my experience, just teaching so many people, praying behind so many people, just everybody's making mistakes in their Fatihah. So I was like, I want to do this thing where I'm going to have a workshop and we're going to go through our Fatihah, just like line by line, word for word, letter for letter, and just go real deep and just like, boom, do like that. I tested it out at a program that Saad put on in New Mexico at the Dar Islam thing. It was like crazy. Like the reviews I got afterwards was like, is this like a prank? The people was like, it's changed my life. It changed the way that I see Qur'an. And I was just like, what? So then I was like, maybe I can take this thing on the road. Then I was like, nah, nobody's going to actually think it's of any value. And I just went ahead and I did it. It ended up exploding. Ended up going to over like 40 cities from West Coast to East Coast, North, South, like everywhere. I mean, got a couple of invitations from the same institutions. Again, one particular guy wanted me to do it in Florida, in two different places in the same city. I mean, it was like, and then as I was calling people too, I noticed, especially the people of knowledge, I didn't have to make a pitch to them. The moment I said I wanted to do a workshop helping people perfect their Fatihah, so done. They were like, I started explaining, and literally people would stop me. You don't have to sell this to me. We need this. They said, we need this. That was it. One guy, I called him because he has a Qur'an Institute in Philly, Sheikh Anwar Muhammad. And I was like, he don't need this for sure in his community. So I'm just going to call him because he's the only one at the time that I knew in Philly. And I wanted him to connect me to other masajid. I started telling him everything. He said, no, we want it.
We want.
And I was like, Sheikh, you got a school. I know. He was like, no. He's like, my motto is that you can absolutely never have enough Qur'an. There's no such thing as enough Qur'an. So we want it. Tell me how much it costs. Send me the invoice. Let me know the dates, how it works. Done. We got it. And subhanAllah, I ended up doing it at his masjid. SubhanAllah.
Amazing.
And so, yeah.
Truly inspiring story, Ashir. I key takeaway for anybody out there listening right now, if you've got an idea that you think won't be important to other people, here you have it. Who would have thought Ashir is thinking about making Tajweed easy, making Quran easy, making Fatihah easy, and built an entire organization just around that. And mashallah, he's been to 40 cities. He's an online program. And now even opening Tajweed up for free, your courses for free, your entry-level product for free.
It's going to become free in August totally, but we do have free classes every Wednesday already. I do one at 8 a.m. CST, so it's 9 a.m. EST. On Wednesdays, every morning, that's free. And then the same day on Wednesday in the evening at 5:30, so it's 8 o'clock a.m. CST, and then it's 5:30 EST in the evening with a different teacher, another guy that I brought in, awesome guy, Sheikh Ahmed Zaid. He's teaching that class. And then every Ramadan for the past 3 years, we've been doing free Tajweed classes every single day, twice a day. Yeah, every single day, the whole entire month of Ramadan, from day one all the way to the final day, till right before Eid. We'll do free Tajweed classes twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening, every single day. And people absolutely love that. Major attendance all throughout that whole thing. I usually have to cut people off every single day and just say like, come back the next day because it's always too many people. Alhamdulillah. So that's free. But I want to make my Tajweed mastery class free, which is that's going to start in August. I just need to work with the other teacher so we can put together a schedule and a program and make it like real organized semesters and all that stuff. And in that one, we're going to teach like all the technical rules of Tajweed along with the practical application. Currently, the free ones that we're doing is just application, which is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But for those who want to learn the rules and they like some people like the technical stuff, we want to offer that class for free because it's currently paid.
You're amazing. You're amazing. Thank you so much for being, a hero, a founder, leading the way, helping others get closer to Quran. Thank you for doing this work. We'll have to have you back out to talk more about your programs and your journey. Ashir, Jazakumullah khairan for being on the show today. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.